This is not a ride sharing video. Today's topic is, I just want to run this by, because as you see, the title of the video is Memphis Prepares for Unrest. We're talking civil unrest, folks. Once again, in the news, there has been another horrific incident involving police. This time it is the city of Memphis apparently beating up a suspect so badly that the moment their supervisors, the folks in charge, saw the video, they fired all the police officers. So that video is due to be released shortly, and the city of Memphis, apparently realizing how horrific the video must be, are already on alert for potential civil unrest. So we have to ask, what the hell is in the video? Because the officers have already been terminated. Is it a possibility similar to Derek Chauvin, where in addition to being terminated, they should be brought up on charges? That's probably, if you ask your humble correspondent, that's probably where we're leaning at with this. But nevertheless, there is video footage of these Memphis officers beating up a suspect so badly that their supervisors fired them immediately, and that footage is due to be released shortly. So they're on alert for potential civil unrest, meaning that the video must be horrific. It must look bad. If they're already doing this ahead of time, considering the officers have been terminated, it probably is going to lead us to believe, or lead us to ask the question, why the hell haven't they been charged with a crime? So we're going to be discussing that. However, and in addition to the discussion about that, we have to ask, why the hell is there still such a huge problem between African Americans and law enforcement in 2023? Is it that law enforcement still has an intolerance towards minorities, or is it that minorities are committing a hell of a lot of crimes and putting themselves into these situations? That is what we're discussing today, because it does not seem like the issues with minorities, particularly black people, and police are going to go anywhere anytime soon. Is there any sort of solution out there that could heal the ill relationship between blacks and police? Going to be talking about that. In addition to that, for some of you folks who follow the news, you may have heard a few days ago, probably over a week ago at this point, a teacher was shot by her 6-year-old student after several folks were warned that this student potentially had a firearm. But that's not the big topic of it. The big topic is the phrase, the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, and the push to arm teachers. Meaning, are we in support of a teacher potentially taking the life of a 6-year-old right in the classroom? Those are our topics. Looking in the comments. Now it's the black man's fault and the Mexican's fault. I don't get that one, Nick Wills. Trump is the reason that we are so hated around the world. Users 4-6, I don't know about that, because there is a lot of intolerance toward the United States and the Middle East, and that existed long before Trump came on the scene. I would submit to you that, as opposed to Trump, it is our constant involvement of affairs of other nations that is probably why we are disliked the most. Because like I said, the hatred toward America, particularly coming from the Middle East, was long before Trump came on the scene. And it is the notion that America wants to police the world when they have not been invited to do so. I believe that is our biggest issue. Going back to the comments, and I'll go right back to the box shortly. As I always say, this is a MAGA-friendly program. I do not ban, block, or censor anyone for their commentary. Feel free to come in the box. As always, you can speak without any fear of censorship. The fact that you may disagree with the host never means a damn thing here. So tap the screen, get your boy up to 5,000 likes, and let's kick this off. Nick Will says, I'm poor and I paid $1.5 million in taxes and Trump paid nothing. Wait a minute. Some of that doesn't work right. I'm poor and I paid $1.5 million in taxes and Trump paid nothing. I'm going to let the folks watching the program tell me what doesn't sound right there. I'm poor. And I paid $1.5 million in taxes, but yet Trump didn't pay anything. All right, going on to the comments. I'm of mixed ethnicities, biracial, if you will, and I've experienced very few police issues. Well, I'm black as night, and I have not received a hell of a lot of them either, but I have received some. I have received some. Going to the box, and I will give you my advice on how I believe African Americans can avoid issues with police. But I'll go to the box. We'll take a few calls first. It is Reveal the Deer. So are we asking, Jess, the good afternoon, Reveal. Question we're asking is, the issues that seem to be still occurring with African Americans and police, is African Americans just putting themselves in this situation, or are there real legitimate claims against police?
All right, so I live in Memphis.
Oh, you're in it. You're in the thick of it.
Well, I'm 15 miles north of the city.
Close enough.
And I got friends that work for Memphis PD, and I spoke to them, and the video is bad.
Really?
Yes.
So it's just a genuine ass kicking for no reason at all.
Yeah. And I don't care.
Let's tackle that. How does that keep happening in a day and age where African Americans are complaining about police every damn where, and there is nowhere you can go hardly without having a camera? How does that still happen in this day and age?
You want my thoughts on it?
Absolutely.
When I was a kid, if I did something wrong, I got my ass beat.
So did I. But
go whoop
is that? Now. Go ahead.
Go whoop a kid now. The parents.
Yeah, but I gotta ask you this in regards to getting your ass beat as a kid, which yours truly, I certainly got my share of ass whoopings as well. If you go back to the era when parents were actually laying their hands on kids to get them to act right, the police were still abusing people. So this was still happening.
I agree. I think a lot of, like these police officers, I know some of them worked at Shelby County, and they got asked to leave. They went to Memphis, which is in the same county.
Wait a minute. They moved from the county police to the city police. Was this before the ass whooping or after?
This was like 5 years ago.
Okay. So they were already getting in trouble with the county police and they were allowed to go and then work for the city.
Yeah. Here's what I think the problem is. You go look what a police officer makes. Most people won't do that job. So you get stuck with what you get. And then it goes to their head, oh, I got authority and I can do what I want. And then they go out and act like idiots.
Yeah, but is that a lack of training issue? Because at the end of the day, nobody's forcing a person to wear a badge and go and protect the law. They're voluntarily taking these jobs. So I get the complaint about getting paid. Hell, I don't like what I'm earning. Most Americans think they're underpaid, but we don't go out and kick somebody's ass because of it.
And I don't know. I think it starts at home. I really do.
But okay, so let me ask you this. Now, if you work in any form of customer service position, and make no mistake about it, police and civil servants are in the business of customer service. You get mailmen that have to deal with dogs and customers that are pissed off their welfare checks didn't get there. You got paramedics that have to deal with overdose patients who are pissed off you gave them Narcan and ruined a really kick-ass high. You got firemen who get citizens that are pissed off you're dragging them out of a burning building when they couldn't save their laptop or their cat. Yet none of these other civil servants respond to angry customers by beating their ass. Why is only cops doing this stuff? Everybody deals with bad customers. Why are only the cops the ones thinking that the response should be an ass whooping?
That's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. And it's bad, but what's the answer to it?
Well, before I got to move it on, but before I do, in the comments, I got two comments back to back, and I want to run these by you. Coming from, looks like it says Desmond Rose Gold or something, and also user. First person said because they can get away with it. The second person said because there is no accountability. Is that a potential reason that the police, unlike the fire, unlike nurses in hospitals, unlike mailmen, know that if they do something, there's likely to be less accountability for it?
Could be. I mean, I don't know why them officers or some of them left the county and went to the city, but it was because they got in trouble.
Yeah.
So if you can do something, so I own a roofing company. So if I can go to a homeowner's house and steal, and my boss finds out, but I can go down the road and get a job. And there's no consequences to it. What's going to keep me from
Right.
the same thing?
I can't disagree with you there. All right, River, I got to move it on. Appreciate you coming through.
Yep.
Good talk. All right, looking in the comments. You guys are really on point with the comments. By the way, tap the screen, get your boy up to 10,000 likes. Generally, tapping the screen brings me more MAGA. This is a MAGA-friendly program. Nevertheless, liberals are welcome. MAGA just tends to be the preferred guest here. Why cops weigh 400 pounds? Cash Rose, I don't... 400? Has anybody ever seen somebody with an actual uniform, badge, and gun 400 pounds? Damn, I'm 6'6", 300. So that's all. Even for myself at 6'6", 400 pounds is a lot. That's a big ass dude. All right, we just need to hold them accountable. Know the law. It's Bravo. You know, that is a great point because you see these audit the police channels all over YouTube, and there are some very simple aspects of law enforcement that a lot of cops do not know, such as if you get pulled over for speeding and there's passengers in your car that are just calmly sitting there while you were caught for speeding, they don't have to interact with police at all. They don't have to show their IDs. They do not have to talk to police at all if it's a simple moving violation. A lot of cops seem to not realize that. Dragging passengers out of cars, busting out the passenger window, they don't seem to realize that. There are a lot of instances where the police can actually step to you and you can say, I don't want to talk to you. And the police do not seem to realize it. They do not seem to understand that everybody you encounter does not have to produce their ID. So the audit the police really does a hell of a job in showing the lack of training in terms of law for a lot of police. All right, let's keep it moving. Preacher, SL. I mean, do we really have this problem in 2023 between Americans and cops? I don't get it. Preacher, good afternoon.
Yo, what's going on, bro?
You are very static.
How you doing? I'm sorry about that, bro. How you doing?
Okay, I got you now. I'm doing good. We're talking about the city of Memphis being on. They essentially are preparing for potential civil unrest because there is video of cops beating the hell out of somebody, and apparently it's bad. Why is this still happening this late in the game? 2023, why is this shit still happening?
Well, there's no accountability. This thing about defunding the police, I don't believe that. I believe what we should do, there should be a law that if cops do something, maybe a cop should be licensed. This way, if something happened, he loses his license, like a doctor, like a lawyer. Yeah. Maybe they should lose their license. They should carry their own insurance. If something happens, lawsuit money should come out of their pension fund. It shouldn't come out of the taxpayers' money. Maybe if you do that and they know that if I do something that I have no business doing, or maybe it's against someone's rights, whatever happens, I'm going to be paying for it personally. The other part is, liberal, you got to think about it here in America. There are things that people do that they know they may get away with it. You had the three gentlemen that the black jogger, and they tracked him down and wind up unaliving him. You had you had Kyle Rittenhouse that took his rifle and went to another state. Could you imagine a young black male saying, I'm going to take my rifle and I'm going to go to another state and I'm going to walk the streets and I'm going to protect something and I don't have to really worry about anyone doing anything. So it's
Well,
not
hold on.
just, it's,
Wait. Let me interrupt because first of all, in regards to the Kenosha riots, there, my guess is some of the rioters were from outside of the state of Wisconsin too. When you talk about people coming from outside of the state to do damage, Kenosha is right on the border with Illinois. It would not surprise me if people from outside of the area that meant harm to the area also came there in addition to Kyle Rittenhouse.
you're right, but I can tell you one thing. There won't be someone that looks like us that took our rifles and went somewhere to walk the street like that. Because we know the perception is different, even if we have license. Even if we have our license, the perception of us is different. I mean, we had the military man that was in uniform and got maced. He was in uniform in his vehicle and got maced. So when the perception is, hey, I might not get in trouble for doing, not me, us, but them, people that don't look like us, we might not get in trouble if we do things.
Let me ask you this, Joe, because when you mentioned Kyle Rittenhouse, based on what you've seen, do you think he committed any crimes at all?
Probably technically, no.
Okay.
Technically, no. But here is the thing. In Ohio, there was a young black woman that called the cops. She was being attacked at her home. She had a knife to protect herself. Kyle Rittenhouse had a gun to protect herself. The end result was when the cops showed up, they unalived her.
Yeah.
When Kyle
I have,
Rittenhouse
yeah.
did it, the cops walked. Kyle Rittenhouse walked past the cops with the gun. If anything else, liberal, they should have been stopping him to find out what's going on. Hey, why do you have
Yeah.
a gun? But they did nothing. And
Yeah.
therein
Yeah, I
lies where the
don't, yeah, I
perception
don't,
is.
well, I will tell you this. When you say that Rittenhouse did not expect to face any type of accountability, when he walked past the police, he had his hands in the air. Even he was quite shocked, like, damn, they just let me walk by. So the privilege was in full swing that day. But I want to ask you this, because this is in the comments from James Patterson. James Patterson in the comments is asking a question, which is quite a common question. Why are grown ass men putting themselves in a position to get the shit kicked out of them to begin with? Meaning
Oh,
that when
that
African Americans are often complaining about being mistreated by cops, he's suggesting then why are you committing crimes if you don't want to get your ass kicked?
well, we know that all the times that's really not the case. Now, there are times when you commit a crime, you should get your behind whooped. You should be locked up. You should be going to prison. Period. I don't care what your
Right.
skin color is. You doing the crime, you should be going to jail. I don't care if you're grown or young or whatever. It doesn't have anything to do with that. But when an individual that has power automatically views you as someone that could commit crimes, because there's a lot of us, for the individuals in the comment, there's a lot of us that didn't do anything, but the perception of us is different. So when you view someone with the perception of bad, then you're going to basically approach that person differently. Because I'm pretty sure we can find all over the internet videos of non-blacks being pulled over doing reckless things and nothing happens. They're not beaten. They're not unalived. Now
Okay, well,
there were certain instances when it's like that, but on a regular, there is always this, you can't do nothing to me. It's my right. And the cop looks at them and don't approach them the same way they approach someone that looks differently on
yeah.
average.
So before I move on, I have to ask you this last question, which kind of pertains to what you just stated. User 354 in the comments asks, why do they run? Meaning, why do African Americans run from police so often, as opposed to just staying there and complying with the instructions being given to them?
Well, why don't they? Now, if a cop asks me something, here it is. I have family members that are police officers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably shouldn't be talking right now, but it's. I have family members that are police officers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have family members that are wardens. I have a family member that's a DA in Jersey. You understand? Assistant district attorney. So my perception is different. When I get pulled over, let's just say I just got pulled over recently. I got pulled over. I roll the windows down and all this and that. The police, and I wasn't speeding, wasn't speeding or anything. They said my license plate was blocked, right? And guess where I was? I was in Texas, driving through Texas. So he asked me, "Are you on the job?" I said, "No." I said, "Why would you ask?" He said, "Oh, because you rolled the windows down and you turned the cab light on." I said, "I have family members that are in law
I do
enforcement."
that. Yeah, I do the same thing, and I've never had nobody ask me no shit like that.
But he
But go
asked
ahead.
me
I'm
that because he probably was surprised that I did it. But then he asked me to get out of my truck. I said, "Okay." He said, "You have any weapons?" I said, "No." He said, "Okay, well, come sit in the car." Now, on average, for everyone in the comment section, there's a 99.9% chance that a non-black would not have been told to get out the car and go sit in the other car for license, for one of those little ring license plate things. Not speeding, just that. That's why. Because we automatically think, not all of us, we automatically think, oh, something's going to happen. Let me run and get the heck out of here. Whereas non-blacks feel, I got the right, ain't nothing going to happen to me. When you feel nothing is going to happen to you, you stay. When you think something may happen to you, you flee.
Good conversation, preacher. Well
All
stated.
right.
Catch you on the next one. All right, and
All
I
right,
will
bro.
respond. Now, while I do agree with what he's saying, if you are fearful, you may take off and run. And I too, even though I haven't had any issues with, hell, I haven't even been stopped by police in years. But I will state that when I was younger, certainly when you got rims on your car or you got a beat up vehicle, that just is like a red flag to police. And I have had several vehicles like that throughout my younger years. And I've been pulled over just like what he's stating for a typical moving violation and asked to get completely out of your vehicle. So I understand it. I didn't take off and run. I'm not a fan of that, but nevertheless, it is frightening to have a cop ask you to step out of your car when you know at best I ran through a stop sign or, I was driving 10 miles over the limit. Why do I need to get completely out of the car? That does happen, so he has a point. Now, I stated, and I'll go right back to the box as well. Tap the screen. Get your boy up to 15,000 likes. This is, even though we're not really discussing Trump today, this is a MAGA-friendly program. I do not ban, block, or censor anyone. So, MAGA, you always are my preferred guest, but liberals are welcome as well. I stated in the beginning of the program I would give my spiel on what African Americans particularly, but minorities in general, could do to avoid these type of situations with police. I hate to say it, but the answer for the most part is pussy up. Meaning, if you are in a bank or you're in a pawn shop or you're in a liquor store and someone comes in there and announces that it is a robbery and they have a gun, if you do not listen to them, you know you may lose your life. For some strange reason, even though police carry guns and they're barking instructions, people tend to treat them differently. I would submit to you, your best hope for survival is treating police like bank robbers. You can argue about your rights and all of that shit if you want, just like you could tell a bank robber, you have no right to take my money out the bank. But it's not likely to go well for you. So just like with a bank robber or someone robbing a liquor store, the guy has a gun and he's barking instructions at you. Understand, if you do not listen, he's likely to shoot you. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying this is the way it should be. I'm saying this because you are better off going home to your family than being on a t-shirt doing a Al Sharpton interview. So I strongly believe until some shit changes, treat police officers just like you would treat a bank robber coming in a bank when you're conducting business. If you do not do what that guy says, he may take it all the way up to and including taking your life. Not defending it at all, folks. Just telling you this is what often happens. People take off and run, or they speak back negatively to a cop. Some of the stuff they do is constitutionally protected, and they still lose their lives. Just like someone in a bank when it's being robbed. Going back to the box, JRP Music. Welcome back. After you can go to court if wrong. Going to court ain't gonna help either, by the way, but fair enough, you can do that. Music, good afternoon.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Why are we still having these problems with police in 2023? Is it just minorities making this up for hatred of law enforcement?
No, it's another division thing. I mean, I'm not going to say there is no problem, but
division stoked by who?
Well, my biggest culprit would probably be the institution, because just like in the 70s when they introduced crack to society, who did they pin it on?
Well, yeah, I get that. So you're saying the institution is deliberately trying to create division between minorities and law enforcement?
1,000,000%. Of that, I have no doubt, zero doubt in my mind. There's not a single thing anyone can say on this entire earth that's going to tell me any different.
What would be the benefit for the institution to create division between African Americans or minorities and its, and its personnel?
Because crime makes pathways to making laws which make money.
Yeah, but you can get that. But you can get that without the division. We are never going to live in a time, no matter how good or bad relations are with police, we're never going to live in a time where there's not crime. There will always be crime.
Of course there will be. But when you have a narrative behind it, it's a lot easier to feed the flames.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So in other words, portray minorities as criminals and bad guys, and that helps the process.
Exactly. And then in turn they can push their legislation and then sneak their little money laundering bills into the Senate floor and get it passed at 12 o'clock at night, and just pass their agenda. It's what it is. The government literally thrives off this kind of division in the people, because if they didn't have this, they wouldn't be able to write the laws as easy as they do. Yeah, they'd be able to write laws, but would it be easy as it is when they're doing this? Hell no.
Give me an example of a law that you believe has been written that would not be as easy without this type of division.
Oh, well, man. Now you're putting me on the spot here. You got to make me think.
You're making a very powerful, controversial statement. Yeah. So I got to listen. When you come here, we're going to ask you the questions. So I got to ask that. Yeah.
Well, I'm okay. Like the bills that they're trying to pass for gun legislation and whatnot. They obviously don't want us to have guns. So what they're going to do is they're going to create a problem that introduces guns into the system with this whole scenario of cops shooting criminals because they have guns or because of this. Either way, they're trying to take away our guns. And then this little gun bill that let's just say that the left favors the gun control more than the right. And so if they're able to pass this bill with enough votes, then they can sneak in their other stuff with it, because they have so much support on this bill.
Here's where I'm confused. Let me get clarity from you. The left is obviously the side of the aisle that is in favor of any form of gun control, gun legislation. I get that part. But when you say the division is being stoked, are you suggesting that the division being stoked is by the left to get gun control?
I'm not saying so much the left as much as the actual institution itself, but I mean, they do push a lot of the same scenarios as the things that do divide us in this country, and so does the Republicans too. That's why I say the institution, because it's all against. It's all against.
So you don't see any, when you say institution, so you don't see any difference between left and right.
Not anymore. Not really anymore at all. Yeah, they have.
I can't see that. Go ahead.
I mean, they both have different colors on their car, but if it's the same model, it's the same model. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
see, I gotta disagree with that. Certainly, right now in this day and age when we've become really tribal, I think the difference between left and right is more pronounced now than it's ever been. So I gotta disagree with you on the institution, the viewpoint you have of the institution.
I mean, yeah, if you look at Joe Biden's agenda and then MAGA, yeah, it's different. But that's
Yeah.
also that's like it's a big huge spectrum, and whether or not we're in the middle or to each end, the other end's always going to be fighting just as much as the one that we're fighting. I mean, it's never going to be a unified country because of the bipartisanship. The only way that we can actually do this is if we put apart or put aside all of our differences and actually do something that's going to benefit the country instead of trying to push this against someone that's going to push back. Come to like a happy medium, if you will, which I don't see that happening either.
No, I can't see that as well. So if you had to give your spiel, I'll move it on, but before I let you go, if you had to give your spiel, how do you believe we could heal the relations between minorities and law enforcement?
Well, the one thing is that I've noticed in my time period of my lifetime is that when you talk about something and you always bring it up without trying to institute any change, nothing will ever change. You can sit there and say that people are racist all damn day long, but if you're going to keep on bringing it up and not try to change it yourself, it's never going to work.
So give me a solution. Give me what you would do to change that.
I mean, okay, in a perfect world, we'll say this. In a perfect world, what I would do is I would, oh man, that's a huge question to answer. That's a lot.
Well,
I mean,
when you say, you got to understand the things you're saying are dictating my responses. You led me right into this. I have to ask that.
I know I did that. I wasn't ready for it. You got me the follow up, and it's but what I'm
Okay,
saying is
fair
that
enough.
if you put out legislation to stop taking people, or if you stop putting out legislation to stop taking people's guns, and you put more restriction, like your other guest was talking about, like if the cops get licenses and stuff like that, that they could be taken away if they did something wrongly. Like what you need to do is you need to make the penalties a lot more harsh. Because if you give a like say for instance your chef, if you have a chef that doesn't cook his food right and he makes a family sick and they have to go to the hospital, that chef should lose his license for so many years. Like just make the penalties like a lot more strict. And I think that with that would be a big enough deterrent to start with the change. Because you're never going to have one answer that's going to fix everything. You have to
Yeah.
start little and then work your way up. So I mean, if,
All
if
right.
you do it like that, if you take it like that and just institute different laws and different ways to go about this and stop talking about the shit. I understand that there's people that suffered injustices in this world, but there's a lot of people that suffered injustices in this world.
Yeah, but
And if you
okay,
keep
so if you start talking about it, because you mentioned injustices, in my opinion, the number one way to allow injustices to continue is to remain silent. I mean, wasn't Martin Luther
but
King said the only thing, we need for evil to continue is for good people to stand by and do nothing? Look at the Catholic Church with children. When people keep silent about it, that's what gives it fuel to continue. So
but
I can never admit that keeping silent is the best choice.
I'm not talking about the historical part of it. And I'm not talking about if someone comes up to you and they're racist or a bigot or whatever. Yeah, whatever. Set them fuckers in their place. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like don't like there's a lot of like people like especially like in the extreme white communities or the extreme black communities, whatever the case may be, that they kind of embellish the thought of it. They say, "Oh, like I'm so proud to be who I am, but you can't be who you are," and it's like it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, just everyone needs to like we're all the same people inside. We're all the same. Just say we're all the same kind of cars, but we just got different paint jobs. It's
I
like
like
everyone just
that.
needs to come to that we're all the same. And the
I
sooner
like
that
that.
anybody gets over no matter what color your skin is, we'll have a better planet, a better earth, a better whatever, a better society. Everything will be better.
All
We are all the
right, we
same.
agree. All right, fair enough. Fair point. You know what I got to do? You're always welcome back.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right. Looking in the comments, look what they did to Kaepernick. In play buddy, I listen, I do understand they certainly ostracized Kaepernick, but at the end of the day, Kaepernick made a hell of a lot of money on that. But I know he wanted to play ball, and what Kaepernick was doing was exercising his First Amendment free speech right. So, yeah, he didn't get. Now, I don't think the president, particularly meaning Trump, certainly should not have gotten involved in it. That's lower level shit that someone like the president should not get involved in. But a lot of his supporters like them getting involved in it. And here we are. Y'all just listen to what the majority say. Laughing my ass off. Think for yourself for once, says Drew Bunny. You know, you hear that. Being a liberal, being a Democrat, I often hear that. Whether it's always voting Democrat, which African Americans do, getting the COVID vaccination is another one. There are no shortage of folks on the right referring to Democrats, Republicans, or that Republic, Democrats, progressives, and liberals as sheep, as following the media, as not being able to make their own decision. First of all, I don't understand why any Republican or conservative thinks that degrading and talking down to a liberal would ever make them see their point of view. That's the first issue. The second issue is you're stereotyping an entire electorate, an entire group of people. And last but not least, listening to what the majority say, as opposed to thinking for yourself. I have to ask you this question. If everybody on your block was telling you such and such is a serial killer, or this person over here is messing with children, would you rather think for yourself when the whole damn block is telling you the same damn thing? When majority of the people are saying the same thing, that usually there's usually a legitimate reason for that, whether or not you want to agree with it or not. But we'll move it on. Taking a knee now. Okay, it's not a large majority. I don't know where to go with that. Let's be honest. Left and right is really black and white. That's awful, though, because, well, wait a minute. Belfort, when you say left and right is really black and white, I don't look, if you put all of the Democrats in one location and you put all the Republicans in another location, left and right, as you said, left is generally, left and right is black and white. If you look at all the Democrats, you look at all the Republicans. Now, you look at the Republican power, it does look very damn white. But if you look at all the liberals, there's no way you'd walk away saying left is black. They have a huge support for minorities. But the leftists, the liberals, the Democrats, they look like the damn rainbow. Everybody that you can possibly think of is going to have ample representation on the liberal power. Now, there are everyone you can think of in the Republican power, but there's very small amounts of them. You go to a conservative gathering like CPAC or, the Republican National Convention, there are black people there, but it's a handful of them. You go to a Democratic convention, there's going to be a bunch of Muslims, there's going to be a bunch of Asians, there's a bunch of everything at the Democratic stuff. At the Republican stuff, yeah, they have diversity, but very, very little of it. Why is that? Going to the box. Otto, I cannot even pronounce it, but we'll Arthur, I think it says. I believe this is a new caller. Good afternoon. I think this says Arthur.
Yes, Arthur Navi Robbins. How you doing?
Okay. I'm doing good. Good to have you on. 2023, still having problems with police. Is this something that at this point minorities are just putting themselves in these situations to blame police?
It's a mixed bag. So, you have sometimes where we do put ourselves in situations that put us in direct line of sight of law enforcement. And then you have sometimes where law enforcement actually seek you out. I've been a victim of, I come from a family of law enforcement. My father's 34 years CPD. So,
Let me
and
let
my
me ask you
uncles,
that. Let me interrupt you and ask you that. With a father that's in law enforcement, obviously you've had numerous talks with your dad. Did your father believe that his own profession is racist?
yes, he did. Absolutely.
Wow.
But you see, I'm gonna tell you something that he said to me that blew me. He said that a lot of times, he said when he was in the police office, when he became a police officer, they had to go through an extensive psych evaluation, right, to make sure that you were mentally capable of doing this job because a police officer job is stressful. No one calls a police officer when we're having a good time. right? We've
True.
done some horrible things to each other. And imagine someone doing that day in and day out. You're seeing the worst that humans can do to each other, right? And he said, so the
Yeah.
psych evaluations are extremely important so that you can weed out the psychopaths. He said nowadays, the psych evaluation is it's non-existent. He said, so what's happening in our police department is that they're hiring a bunch of psychopaths who
Oh,
basically has an innate desire to murder people. And because, and I don't care what anyone says, because black lives are not seen as valuable, if you're a psychopath and you have a desire to murder people, who else better to murder than the lives of people that don't really have the same value as everyone else? And he said, and they
but
stand behind that veil of racism because you can't really prove how a person is racist because of their mind. Like, you, it's very rare that you hear a police officer, you can get them on camera using racial slurs. It happens, but for the most part, you know, the guy that killed Tamir Rice and the guy that killed the
Diallo.
yeah, all and you don't hear him on saying the N word while he got his knee on his neck. So he said,
Yeah.
but they hide behind the veil of the blue wall of silence and
But I gotta ask you
hard to prove
then.
racism.
So let me ask you this question. I mean, obviously, you're only giving me your opinion because there's no way to know without him being here. But with your dad being on the police and admitting that the police is racist, I have to ask you, why do you think he continued to operate in a racist environment as opposed to choosing a different career?
My dad is ex-military. He's vet. That's all he knew, right? And I think a lot of black police officers, there's a lot of benefits that come, and a lot of black police officers, they stick it out because of the benefits after you retire. The
Yeah.
retirement plan is much better than most of us,
Well,
private
yeah,
sector and
yeah.
whatever. So a lot of them just buy the time. I have really good friends who she's a woman. She was a police officer on the west side of Chicago. She couldn't do it anymore, so she removed. But she stayed as long as she did. It was like 18 years. But I mean, after the first year, she said, "I'm riding in a car with a white police officer who's my partner, and all day he's calling the people monkeys and the N word and everything else. And you have to sit there and listen to it because you don't want to check your partner because you are out in the street. There's a lot of things happening. You want to make sure that the person that's next to you is going to have your back. It's just like a soldier.
Okay,
You don't.
so yeah, I totally get that. But before I move it on, how do you think we could actually even heal this? I mean, we obviously have poor relations with law enforcement. Is there any
Yeah.
solution at all?
For
Is this
one, I
just
think
part of
that
our
psych
norm?
evaluations are necessary.
Yeah.
There is solutions. There is solution. We psych evaluations need to be more extensive. I do believe that if a police officer is found to commit a crime, his punishment needs to be 2 times as bad as a normal citizen because we've given you the license to police and basically the license to kill. So if we find out that you're killing people haphazardly, you're operating irresponsibly, you have to, so if you're going to charge somebody 10 years, you're doing 25. You see what I'm
But
saying? The
how do
punishment
you?
needs to
But
be
how would you
harsher.
respond if you do something like that? How do you respond to the additional amount of officers resigning? Like, if you're going to treat us like this, who the hell wants to do this for $40,000 a year? If now you're talking about throwing me in prison for the rest of my life for a mistake, how do you respond to that?
Well, citizens of the United States can't quit being citizens of the United States. So hey, we have to deal with bad policing all of the time, right? So be
Right.
accountable for your actions. And I also want to say that the whole thing about conservative and liberal, black people are conservative by nature. We
True.
really are conservative people. The
True.
only reason why we do not vote conservatives because y'all sprinkle that racism in there, and we can't stomach it. When you add that little razzle dazzle of racism in there, black people, we turn away from it. And I know conservatives like to say no, that's not it. But if the liberals were to say the things about you that you say about us, innuendos and little sneak disses, y'all wouldn't like it. So if the Republican Party, if you genuinely feel that you have a better program for African Americans, remove the racism. all of the innuendos and all of you aligning yourself with people that have questionable pasts and questionable narratives. If you want the black vote, we're conservative by nature. We have issues with the LGBTQ. We have hard stance when it comes to Christianity and God in the schools. We are conservative. We are conservative people. But you lose our vote when you throw in the razzle dazzle of racism. So conservatives, you have to ask yourself, why is that necessary in your
Well,
doctrine?
there are supporters that probably like that. That's why it's necessary. Well, Arthur, I gotta move it on. Well said, by the way. Is this our first time chatting?
Absolutely. Great.
Well,
Thank you for
you're
having
always
me on.
welcome back. Appreciate you coming. Come on back through anytime. All right, moving on. Program. He's homophobic in talking. Who is that? Leander Burst or whatever. Being honest in regards to the statement that he is homophobic in talking. I say it all of the time. I've actually told this to other African Americans. How dare you escape the history we've dealt with on racism and then turn back and do that same shit to somebody else? The African American community does have a lengthy history of homophobia, but nevertheless, so does most America. There is no group of people in this country other than the LGBT community that doesn't have a history of hating the LGBT community. But they just wanted to respond to that comment because that caller is correct. We do identify with a hell of a lot of conservative values, conservative ideals, including the viewpoints toward the LGBT community. That stuff is, listen to rap music, by the way. Any rap song, that shit is hellified anti-LGBT. So say what you want about the last caller. I do believe what he was saying made sense and was factual. Going to the box. Whitewashed. I don't know where you're going with that. But in the comments real quick, Carter says, you are the most ignorant person I've ever seen in my life. Carter, I appreciate having you on. As I say to everyone watching the program, I do not ban, block, or censor anyone for their commentary. The fact that you may disagree with the host doesn't mean shit. I give you plenty of time in the box. Even Carter, come on through. 10 minutes is all yours. Let you state your point. Won't censor you, won't ban you, won't block you, but we'll have a conversation. Appreciate you guys rolling with your boy. You could be anywhere on social media. The fact you're here, it's an honor. Tap the screen. Get your boy up to 30,000 likes. I believe that can happen with 700 plus of us in here. And let's keep it moving. All right, looking in the box. Friend of the program, my name is Kitten. Why the hell in 2023 can't we get past this awful relationship, Devil Naughty, with the puppy showing his ass? Appreciate the generosity. Kitten, good afternoon. Don't know what just happened to Kitten, but he came in and went. Let me see. We'll move it on. We'll keep it moving to the right libertarian guy. Let's see if TikTok. Okay, there we go. Libertarian guy. Good afternoon. Are you there? Okay, I got libertarian guy there on the box, but I don't hear any audio. I'll give him a moment to get it straight here. Okay, can you hear me? Liberals don't like the truth, says Gina Gen 12. I don't recall any
Hey,
liberals present on January the 6th. There was no truth there that day.
yeah,
Libertarian
you're
guy, good
breaking up a
afternoon.
little
Can you hear me?
bit. How you doing?
I'm
Okay, I can
doing
hear you.
good.
Can you hear me?
Divinati is showing love. Thank you, Divinati. Okay, we're talking about the police and current relations with Memphis. The city of Memphis is preparing for civil unrest because there's apparently a really bad video of a police beating. What is it going to take to get minorities in police to heal the current relationship we have?
Honestly, it could start with conversations, between police officers and, people of the community. And, that's going to be the first step. It's going to take more than that, obviously. And another thing is people, from the neighborhoods that are being, quote unquote, over policed. There needs to be, because if you want to fix the system without, completely and utterly tearing it down, uh, people from these communities that are quote unquote over police
Right.
need to become, I guess, a part of that system,
But let
and
me let me ask you
to
this though.
advocate for their neighborhoods.
But let me ask it to you, because you said we need to have a conversation. There has been an ongoing response when African Americans and minorities talk about the police of denial, meaning that we don't know what they're complaining. Because even in modern times, you hear blacks talking about Black Lives Matter. What is the response? Blue Lives Matter. All lives matter. So how can you have a conversation if the other side is treating you like you're a fraud? What you're complaining about is not even real.
That's why I think the conversation is necessary, because both sides are going to have different perceptions of the other side, and until break down the me versus them, and the left versus right, black versus white, red versus blue, all this stuff, until you move past all that and actually sit down and have a conversation between people, and not these ideals and these symbols. I don't think anything will happen until we come together and do that.
But will the other side be willing to listen is the point I'm trying to make. For instance, let's talk about right versus left. If you listen to people on the right, as far as they're concerned, the Black Lives Matter, the entire movement, organization, you name it, is a fraud. So everything that they're talking about that's happening to African Americans, the folks on the right is saying, you guys are making all of this stuff up. So how do you have a conversation with somebody who thinks that?
So again, that's where I think, all these labels and boxes that we're putting ourselves in with these different items of symbolism, and not items as in physical, tangible things. I think you know what I mean by items. Until we move past these symbols, and because at the end of the day, you lean left, I'm libertarian, a little bit more right leaning. We had different ideals, but I'm a human, you're a human, we're both men. We can sit down and have a conversation like we've done many times here.
Right.
Until we get to that point with the different communities and the police force, because I'm no fan of the police, period.
You're a libertarian, of course. You're a libertarian.
Well, there's a wide spectrum of libertarianism that goes all the way to anarchism, which I'm not an anarchist. But with that, like, if we don't actually, come to each other as people and have these conversations, all it's going to result in is one side hating the other and the other side hating back.
Yeah, I don't know how to even fix that, but
that's going to
go
get us
ahead.
nowhere but a civil war.
All right, fair enough. All right,
Yeah, that's going to
libertarian,
get us
I
nowhere but a civil war.
I gotta move it on because we obviously have a little bit of a shaky connection. But as always, I appreciate you coming through, man.
Yeah, real quick.
Okay. All right. And I don't know what happened there, but I live near Memphis. I can tell you these cops had a speed through training process from Patty Lynn. So you're suggesting that they were trained really quick, improperly. But I had another caller actually come on the program and talked about the notion that some of those cops were first operating under Shelby County, which is the county that Memphis is in. So they were actually county officials, county police officers, deputies, apparently got in trouble and ended up leaving their county position and then getting hired on with the city police. That is a problem. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm not here to really elaborate on it other than that, but that is a problem. That an officer that is at the end of his career due to disciplinary actions is often allowed to resign and go somewhere else. And then you find that out when the cop is actually, found guilty or actually accused of something really bad, that he worked for other departments and there were problems there as well. Meaning that I got to agree with the gentleman that came on, talked about police officers, insurance, and things like that. I've said it before. Just like a truck driver, a doctor, nurses, and things like that. Police officers should have to have some form of insurance as a condition of having a badge. Just like a truck driver has to have insurance as a condition of owning a CDL or maintaining a CDL and taking loads. You can have a CDL without insurance, but you can't do the job. They should do the same thing with the police officers because insurance companies do not like to pay out claims. They are constantly looking for ways to avoid paying out claims. Even as a truck driver, warnings, just getting warnings, not actual tickets, not actual convictions, just warnings can ruin your chances to maintain your insurance. If the police officers had insurance, anytime people are making accusations of them being brutal or overstepping their boundaries, because the insurance companies do not want to end up with a Derek Chauvin, George Floyd situation, they're going to be investigating that stuff. Because they know if they allow it to fester, eventually they're going to be paying out $1 million claims. So cops that get all of these incidentals on their records are going to face the wrath of real investigators trying to get to the bottom of what's really going on, as opposed to the Internal Affairs Bureau, which for the most part are former cops or even current cops. That's not effective enough. Letting the police police themselves has a lot to do with why we're in this situation. If they had to have insurance like physicians, nurses, truck drivers, and a host of others, this would be addressed a lot more efficiently. Going back to the comments, most people don't realize we don't have rights. 83C Smart. I thought America was the most free country on earth. And here I have somebody in the comments saying we don't even have rights. Wow. Disband the police unions. See my deal, and I'll go to the box after this, but in regards to disbanding police unions, there was a huge push to get rid of teachers unions and bus driver, city transportation unions a few years back because they were showing how teachers would fake injuries and spend a whole year at home getting paid, or how it's difficult to terminate bad employees. Oddly enough, because this type of push to ban unions was coming from folks on the right, well, folks on the right often say they're the party of law enforcement. So they went after everybody else's unions but the police. And as you're pointing out in regards to disbanding police unions, any issues you have with unions, whether it's getting involved in politics, misusing union dues and things like that, all of that does apply to police unions as well. There should have been an outcry from the right to also go at the police unions, but because they are typically pro-law enforcement, their outcry or outrage was biased. And the police unions were allowed to survive doing the exact same stuff they complained all the other unions were doing. I do appreciate that chandelier or whatever that was. I didn't see who sent that, but I do appreciate that. All right, let's go back to the box. Tap the screen, get your boy up to 35,000 likes. Still 600 plus of you guys in here. Appreciate you rolling with your boy. There we go. Bionic Man Keith, welcome back to 2023. Still having problems with police as if it's 1948. What the hell is going on with this, Bionic Man? Why can't we get past this?
I was raised by a cop. My cousins are cops. My nephew is a cop. We have these conversations all the time. I talk to my nephew. He's actually been off the job for the better part of a year, going through psychological training and everything, because he has PTSD from being on the job for almost a decade. He has seen decapitations of babies, gang wars where people have been murdered. He has seen people who have been burned alive. He has seen, he was involved in an event where he was in an alleyway, caught a guy ripping the clothes off of a young girl and about to what, and his partner had to pull him off of the guy because he was beating the hell out of him. He lost control of his temper. Now, I understand, if you seen somebody getting ready to do that to a young girl, what you would want to do. But as a cop, you have to flip that switch. You know what I mean? You can't do that. Once someone is under your control, you have to flip that switch. Especially, he has daughters. It's like, you can't do that.
Right.
We don't. So now that he's
Yeah,
going through psycho,
but that's a different argument in terms of being, I guess, desensitized or being hyped up because of all of the mayhem you see. But the police serve us all, no matter what skin color, religion, background. The police serves all of us in America. However, the minorities, particularly blacks, believe they're being treated differently. Why is that in 2023?
they are being treated differently. He works in a predominantly black city. He talks about it all the time. He's like, they are being treated differently. I mean,
In
he's
what
not.
ways? In what ways?
They're automatically seen guilty. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
he talks about like how the crime rate in black communities are higher. So it's like they're viewed differently. Even the black cops that are on the force talk about how they target black people in black communities. Like what's going on in Memphis right now? All 5 of these cops are
Yeah.
being charged with murder, and they're all black cops.
Did that come across? Have they been officially charged with murder?
Yeah, it's on. I got CNN right now on. It's being, I got
Okay.
it muted, but they're being charged, and they've
Okay.
been.
And the reason I did the program is because I did hear that they were on alert for civil unrest. But at the time, I don't think they had been charged. So now that they are being actually charged with murder, I think that would probably calm the crowd down. But I have to ask you, do you think the rush to charging them with murder may be because the city was fearful of getting burned to the ground?
Sure,
Yeah.
they're going to be. Do I feel like maybe it's up higher right now? 1 charge second-degree murder, 1 charge aggravated assault, 2 charges aggravated kidnapping. It's like they got all the charges on the screen right now. 5 of them are being charged.
Wow.
It's
And in the
it,
comments, I was just going to say, in the comments, Joby, who is a friend of the program as well, he's asked the question, why does it take so long for white cops to be charged? And that is the entire reason oftentimes behind this. When you look at Derek Chauvin with George Floyd, it took like 4 or 5 days. So all of that rioting in Minneapolis that was happening because of the George Floyd case and all around the damn country, he wasn't charged while any of that was happening. And you see somebody on the ground for 9 minutes, and it does make you wonder, like, what's taking you so damn long to charge this guy with a murder you got videotaped? So it does
well,
seem like their rush in Memphis might be because they were trying to avoid being set ablaze.
and I think that you're going to start seeing this more and more happen, where cops are charged with the crime because of what happened. You know what I mean? With
Yeah.
George Floyd. I think George Floyd's case, it changed America and how we handle these cases. I talk to my nephew about this all the time, and I worked in corrections, and we used to have to go through what was called verbal judo, which is how to de-escalate a situation.
Yep.
And I said to him, how much of that training do you go through? And he said 0. And I'm like, that's one of the fucking problems.
Yeah.
You guys, growing up, my dad trained attack dogs. And I'm like, you guys are attack dogs. Like, he's on the SWAT team. You're constantly trained to break down doors, to have assault weapons. You're constantly trained on how to shoot. It's like, if you got that mindset, that's all the training that you have constantly to be that attack dog on how to attack and not de-escalate a situation. That's what your mind is programmed to do. You're not.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because I agree with that, because we expect citizens who oftentimes get pulled over, sometimes even at gunpoint, or certainly by a cop that has his hands on his gun. We expect the citizens under those type of conditions to be calm and not escalate situations. However, the cops sometimes will be on hype alert just from the visuals of people. So I do agree that de-escalation is something they really need to get into. But I want to ask you this. This is in the comments. This is certainly could be considered a controversial comment, but I want to see where how your response is to this. Funky Cole Medina in the comments said, white guilt makes them violent towards black folks. They think we will do to them as they have done to us. Speak on that. Do you see any validity to that at all?
White, yeah, I don't see that. White guilt. I don't know about that.
In other words, you know, kind of the phrase takes one to know one. In other words, I have treated you so badly that I can't believe you want to be around me. So I'm always on alert because I think your ass might be trying to get revenge on me. That's the way I'm interpreting it. Do you see
Well,
anything like that?
I've always said that you need to represent the communities. And they do this in certain communities. They have it where in like New York City and places like San Francisco, where you have gay communities, Jewish communities, you have Jewish cops, you have gay cops. You represent the communities that you're in.
I like that. I like that idea.
And people like I when I say that, I've heard people say back, well, then you're segregating and you're doing this. It's like, no, you're representing the community. You have to
Yeah.
have representation of what the community is and have cops understand the communities that you're representing.
You know, you make a good point because you see some of these videos. Now, what happened in Memphis is obviously black assailants, black cops. But some of these cases where it's in some of the worst neighborhoods in these particular cities, and it'd be a black person getting their ass beat or getting murdered by a white guy. And it's like, there are no one white living in this neighborhood. Why are all of the cops beating this dude up? White. So I do agree with you that you don't want to segregate, but you do need to have law enforcement that are more representative of the community. Because yeah, I'm looking at some of these neighborhoods like you in Compton or somewhere beating the hell up out of, you know, a black guy. Like can you imagine 4 or 5 black officers patrolling the streets of rural Alabama and going after a white guy and beating the hell out of him? That would not be tolerated. I don't want you at my trailer park or at my house or in my shed somewhere. 4 or 5 black officers walking around, you know, dealing with, you know, rural white. I don't think it would pass. So I do agree they need better representation.
Well, one of the other problems is he's going through psychological um, evaluations right now. And he took himself and did that. He wasn't ordered to do this, and he's like, he went to his superiors and said, I'm having issues. Like I wake up in cold sweats. I need to take myself like off the job, and he went to go see, their therapist, and their therapist said he's got PTSD from the job. He has seen too much of this stuff. He needs to take himself out of the job for a while.
Right.
Well, the second he did that, all of his coworkers, all of his buddies in blue no longer talked to him.
Wow.
It was one of those things of almost like, what are you, a pussy? You can't handle it, and cops
That's a gang in blue type response. You often
Sure.
hear people talk about, yeah, that's what that sounds like. I'll give
They
you the
have
last
some
word
of the
dividing. I got to move it on.
Okay, they have some of the highest divorce rates, some of the highest suicide rates. You ask these guys to go into gang related, like he not only is a regular beat cop, he's also on the SWAT team. So you ask these guys to go into these extremely harsh environments and then get back in the car to pull somebody over for a tail light. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's like these guys are too high strung.
Yeah.
It's like, and then they don't get the correct training. You ask them to go through a training of 6 to 8 weeks, and then you put them in the field. I'm sorry. They need way, way, way more training. These guys are not trained to be cops, period.
Well, you're not the only one saying that, but Bionic Man, I appreciate you coming through, man.
All right, man. Take it easy.
You too. Looking in the comments here, build parks, bring jobs, better schools, start there. Well, the problem is, in minority neighborhoods where this stuff would probably be the most beneficial, build parks, bring jobs, better schools, you're going to get the obvious question. Certainly when it comes to doing all this for minorities. Who's going to pay for it? We already have that problem now where minority neighborhoods, the folks in those neighborhoods are complaining that they're being disenfranchised. You're going to have a hard time finding the money for this stuff. That has been the problem with minority neighborhoods since the very beginning, is finding taxpayers that are willing to send money to minority neighborhoods. That's always been an issue. So even though I agree that could probably make a serious dent in the problem, taxpayers are not very fond of doing that type of stuff for minority neighborhoods. That's always been the way. They don't even attempt to know the laws. They just bully and control, free for all. Yeah, the audit the police proved that time and time again. Just simply put a pistol on your hip. In a state where open carry is 100% legal, walk down the block and before you know it, a cop is drawing a gun on you. You're not committing any crimes at all. Audit the police proves that time and time in again, that the police, a lot of them out on the beat, serving and protecting, they don't know the basic laws. Fact is, they are just simply used to a time when America gave police the benefit of the doubt. The police were always right. They could always be trusted, and anything they asked you to do, you just did it. They are not used to pushback. They are not used to stuff like, libertarians, like I had on the program, or sovereign citizen, or anybody who actually knows their rights is likely to have a problem with police. If you actually know your rights, no, sir, I don't want you to search my car, or I'm not driving, I'm walking down the street, I don't have to show you my ID, or this is an actual legal state, my gun is 100% legal. If you are that type of person, the chances of you having problems with police increase. And if you are a minority in that type of person, hopefully you got life insurance. Going back to the box, the bearded baddie. You got a lot of folks there. By the way, up the screen, get your boy up to 40,000 likes. I do apologize if I'm not taking you in the proper order because TikTok moves the names around. So I'm trying to memorize, folks that's in there, but I do apologize for that. Bearded, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing good. Are minorities just making some of this stuff up? Because there's no shortage of minorities complaining that the police treat us differently. Now, on the right, folks on the right would suggest that if African Americans just did not commit crimes, we wouldn't be having these problems. So is minorities just making this up?
I don't think so. I myself live in El Paso, Texas. They're on the border. It's, 85% Hispanic. And, you hear the same thing here within the Hispanic community as well. I think what the major problem is, within the whole minority aspect and the police is that the police have, how can I call it? The majority of the power is there towards the police. And when things like this happen, with them shooting people, pulling people, excessive force and all that, they then have to go against the board. They get suspended with pay. They have all these safety features put into there so that, it makes it very hard for someone in a minority community to go ahead and say, hey, this is wrong, because they've already built into the system itself, that they
so what you're speaking
are protect
of
themselves.
So what you're speaking of essentially is systemic racism.
I don't think it's systemic racism, although that is a big part of it. It's we're right. We're going to do everything we can to prove that we are right. That's why I think we need to go ahead and take out, like you said, the internal affairs. Make it to where the police stop policing themselves. Because that in itself, if you're held accountable by somebody who's not in a cop who says, you know what? No, you're going to be suspended without pay, because until we investigate, why should we be paying you?
So, but then I have to ask you, if you're saying that systemic racism is at least part of it, why do you think, certainly when it comes to politics, why do you believe, in your opinion, so many folks on the right do not believe systemic racism is even an issue in 2023. If you're an African American or a Hispanic, there is nothing holding you back. There is nothing interfering with your freedoms and your way of life. That's generally what I hear on the program all the time from folks on the right. If you're suggesting that it is a problem, why do you believe folks on the right continue to suggest that this does not even exist?
Partially because it doesn't fit the narrative. Uh,
Elaborate. What do you mean?
okay, so of course, minorities are soon to become the majority.
Okay.
Hispanics are going to be big. Blacks are going to be big in this and everything. So now you see the, I guess, the racist white person having to go ahead and come up with policies, or I don't want to use the word excuses, but I'm sorry, my dog's misbehaving. Quiet, baby.
Is this? Can you see is this somehow tied to, or leading to folks suggesting individuals will not replace us? I mean, you've seen folks yelling this out: such and such will not replace me or will not replace us. When you're talking about minorities soon to become the majority, is there any way that these could be potentially tied together?
I think that the great replacement theory is certainly being used, to go ahead and propagate, those ideas.
So when you say, what do you explain it? Because I've heard different explanation. When you said a great replacement theory, it kind of what is that?
Okay, so the great replacement is like when you saw in Charlottesville, they were saying you will not replace us. Basically the power structure and everything there is, for good or for bad, whatever it is, what it is. The white people were in charge, and now that they know that they are going to be in a minority status, it's kind of like what you were saying previously. I don't want to be treated like I treated them. And I think that's where the great, replacement and the fear of that is being used to kind of push that along.
Yeah, I've heard people say that. So in other words, it is indeed a fear based on the notion that African Americans were mistreated and they may one day seek revenge. Because now I'm not here to pretend like that could ever happen in the United States, but there are real world examples of that, such as South Africa. Whereas they had apartheid and they had racism similar to what happened in the United States, and blacks have risen up to be in a much stronger position of control down there. And they are indeed doing to whites what whites once did to them, taking their land, literally unaliving them and all of that stuff. So, I mean, there is a real world example of the minority rising up, or the abused rising up and becoming the abuser.
That's true.
Yeah.
But there's also, I mean, that is one example there. Like you had Mugabe there in Zimbabwe kicking out, all the white farmers, so they could take the land for redistribution and everything for that. That is irreprehensible regardless of who's doing it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And I think that,
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%.
yeah, and those kind of policies or anything there for that, they should be reprimanded there by the larger majority. Whether that be the white majority, Latino majority, whatever it is. When we see bad acts, we have to go ahead and then say that's a bad act. And then if it's a political policy, we then have to say, okay, you know what? You are no longer representing my thought processes because you are backing these things up. We need to get you out.
Yeah, and I'm with that. You certainly do not want bad apples in any form of leadership. But Bearded, I gotta move it on. You know
No,
what we
no
do
worries.
here.
Hey, you have yourself a great day.
Absolutely a pleasure. Look, comments, folks. Particularly those who are suggesting that what I discussed in regards to South Africa is not true. Okay, fair enough. Come in the box and let me know. But I certainly have done enough research on what's going on in South Africa. And I can tell you for a fact that it has reversed roles to some degree. That there are now whites in South Africa being oppressed in a very similar manner to what was happening to blacks in years past. So I don't know why folks are suggesting that. Well, none of that's happening. He's making that all up. No, it's all over. In fact, it's all over the internet. You got families talking about how they came in our house and killed us all and took our stuff. That is absolutely happening down there. Whether you believe it or not, it's not that it's not true. It's the extent not nearly relevant. Well, that's an opinion, though. Because if it's your family where it's happening to, then it's to a great extent. I didn't say it was 1 for 1 or 2 for, I didn't give any extent. I just simply said the oppressors are now being oppressed. To what extent, you can fill in the blank of that yourself. That part of it is an opinion. Nevertheless, it is happening, though. That's all I'm pointing out. I'm not going to the extent part of it. I've seen videos of necklacing. They were very white farmers. Nothing was taken. Ouch. Necklacing. That's really bad. America should do that too. No, Great Wolf. America should not do that. That does not help the nation or further the nation at all. If for anybody if you pick up a history book, you've seen how horrible America was during the Jim Crow era. Hell, slavery ended up with a civil war, deliberately mistreating hundreds, if not thousands of people, or in this case, maybe even millions. Nothing about that is good for the nation. There are plenty of whites and blacks in this country that are doing very well financially and things like that. If our country falls into this type of mayhem, everybody loses. There are going to be no winners in that at all. I don't care if, let's say you're a white guy and you think, well, we got all the guns and we got all the power. No, you're going to lose a hell of a lot of white people too. Nobody benefits in this. You're going to have a hell of a lot of countries that now work with the United States that are no longer going to do it. There is no benefit to the United States to some form of a boogaloo or some kind of purge or any of this shit. No, I don't understand why anybody would want the country to go through that. Doesn't matter what side of the fight you're on, you're going to lose family members, you're going to lose friends, associates, you're going to lose property, and you're going to lose a hell of a lot of sleep. And you're not going to gain much of anything out of this. So why would anybody want that? I just do not understand that. Looking in the box. Let's move it on. I hate that we even have a conversation like that, but damn. It's a lot of you folks in here. Okay, let me go back to WWG, I believe it was, who was holding there, and that's my grits. You're also going to lose your rights and hand it to all the government, and I'll come in as your savior. It's just James. Before there was government, a guy like me would have had no rights at all. WWG, I don't know what that stands for, but welcome to the program, and good afternoon.
Thanks, man. Glad to be on here. It's good to hear from you.
Appreciate you holding. So what do you think? Is there just minorities putting themselves in these predicaments so that they can blame the police, or is there a genuine problem with police towards minorities?
No, I honestly think that's ridiculous. I don't see anybody putting themselves in harm's way on purpose. I think that inherently this is a system failure too many times, not in all areas, but I think too many times we've seen the hierarchy cover up for the misdoings of officers so many times that it creates sort of a catalyst of it's like an unruly child. When you don't have rules for your children, they become unruly. If you don't stand by particular rules and standards for one or for all the way across the board, then they kind of just go a little reckless with it. And I do think that a lot of certain situations are stemmed with a racist sort of undertone. I do believe that, but not in every situation. I think part of the problem, and this is an onion that needs to continuously be unpeeled, but I think a lot of it is also hiring ex-military to become officers, because these people are trained in offense only.
I was going to bring that up. I was going to bring that up. Anybody who's fought in a war zone or something like that seems to have no problem getting a job with the local police department. And when you look at what they've done, you just came from a war zone. You go put them on the street to police Americans. Yeah, I agree with that part, that the amount of ex-military in the police department is alarming.
Yes, it is. It is. They play offense only. So
That's a bad team. I'm a
Yes, it
Bears
is.
fan. I'm a Bears fan. Right now, we're having that exact problem. As we
Yeah.
play off, we got great offense. Our defense sucks. So, yeah.
Well, I'm from the Detroit area, so we can talk about the Lions too. I mean,
Well,
as far as that goes, but
well, you guys did a hell of a lot better than we did. You almost made the
yeah,
playoffs there. And
yeah, that
shout
was
out to you
good.
for, and shout out to what you guys did to Green Bay in that final game. We enjoyed that, so we do
Yeah,
appreciate that.
and I was
So,
there, so it was good,
oh,
man.
really?
Yeah, I was there.
Nice.
Yeah,
Very nice. So,
it was
so
good.
I have to ask then, in
Yeah,
terms of solutions in regards to the horrible relationship between particularly African Americans, but
yeah.
minorities in general, what what could be done to heal something like this?
Well, I don't think there's any real solution. Anybody can kind of like throw a dart at a dartboard type thing and come up with something. However, I think the media has a lot to play with this. When you turn on the TV and the headline is, black man killed by white cop, that's a bad thing. Okay, we can't
Yeah.
we can't believe that the last incident that happened was George Floyd. Out of all the institutions throughout the whole U.S., that there's such a time gap that police brutality has been allowed to go unchecked throughout. But it's just whatever catches the headlines. Now, and I can only imagine, I'm not a black person. Like, I can only just imagine, I can speculate. I don't live in that world, so I don't know what it feels like, and I'm not gonna
It's
pretend that I
awful.
have,
It's
yeah,
awful.
and my heart goes out really because I don't live in that world, so I don't know. However, if I were the person that when I was turning on the news and I see that cops are only attacking black people, I would probably feel apprehensive about being pulled over, and I would be a fight or flight type situation as well. But then it gets painted that like the black people are running, and if you didn't run, you wouldn't, if you weren't like guilty of something, you wouldn't run. I don't think that that's a good argument to make either.
Yeah, but
When
let me ask you this because Trump used to always point out that more whites are killed by police than blacks, meaning that there's nothing unique to what's happening to black people. It's happening to whites as well. How do you respond to him saying something like that?
Well, I think especially particular people that they have positions should only speak when they know what they're talking about. Uh, but but having said that, like we can rattle off anything and say that it's fact, okay? But you're talking about a proportionate amount of the population too. So to say that it happens more often, we'll look at statistics. I mean, what is it? 60 some percent of the population is white, or if I'm not mistaken about that, I think 14
Right.
are black. So if you look at it like that, then say it happens more often to white people. Well, yeah, because there's like 10 times more white people. So that's just not a valid argument. I don't feel anyway it's a valid argument.
What
I mean, yeah,
about the
you
counter argument I get from a lot of right wingers that say, well, the reason blacks are getting mistreated more by police is because they commit more crimes. Trump is another one that has said that as well, is that
yeah,
blacks are committing all the crimes.
I don't see any statistics or any sort of information that backs that up. The media portrays it that way in a lot of different views. I think the media is a catalyst for a lot of bad things that's going on,
Yeah.
and it invites a lot of apprehension that isn't necessarily fact.
Well, no one denies that the media has an agenda and they are responsible for a lot of the division. But this is one of the questions I often ask folks, and I will run it by you as well. Considering that since 2007 and the invention of the iPhone, most Americans, by way of smartphone, have a complete movie studio in their hands, so anybody can record a police beating. Yet when you look at the beatings that you often see portrayed, it's generally a minority. And it's not that white people do not have cameras. So the argument to be made is that if whites are being beat up just like blacks are, why is there very little footage of whites being mistreated by police?
And see, that proves my point. I don't think there's anything to back that up. So to say those statements, anybody can say those statements, but if you don't have that proof to back it up, then that statement's invalid, in my opinion, especially
Yeah,
in particular positions of trust when you say things like that.
yeah,
It's a bad look.
and that's all. That's been my point. Is that I guess, like I just said in the statement there, it's not like white people do not have cameras. If they're getting their ass kicked and beat up like African Americans are. It should be videos floating around and this stuff everywhere. And there just does not seem to be anywhere near the number of videos that are coming out about black people.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely.
So before I let you go, Free For All in the comments says the footage does exist, but the media doesn't play it. I'm going to let you tackle that one.
I mean, different platforms, they do kind of control, I think, anyways, with algorithms, what you can click on and what you can view and what gets put up at the top. Just like if you can type anything in a Google search bar and whatever they want you to read is going to come up first. Anything they don't want you to read is on page 27. You know what I mean? So I think there is some truth to that. And if you got on any sort of like district court websites or something like that, or any of these police departments, because it's public knowledge, you can see how many lawsuits have been filed for brutality, but you got to look for it.
Yeah.
So the idea that it's not pushed out there, the algorithm isn't pushing it, I do believe that there's some validity with that. That goes back with the whole media spin on some things.
Fair enough. All right. You know what I got to do? Come on back through anytime.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. Take care, buddy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even though I make it clear the program is MAGA friendly, I haven't had a lot of folks on the right side of the aisle. I see you guys in the comments, and your comments are always welcome. I do appreciate that. As I say on every broadcast, you can be any damn where you want to be on social media. So the fact that you're here with your boy, it's always an honor. Might I ask you to tap the screen? 50,000 likes is possible. 500 plus of us in here. In regards to the comment, the notion that the media does not show, mistreatment of whites when it comes to police. Just like the previous caller, I do admit there may be some validity to that. However, we are now in a day and age where the media is not all mainstream. There are plenty of media outlets to convey a white person being mistreated by police, particularly if it's a black police outfit. If there's a black cop mistreating some white guy, Fox News is, as they say, the most well-known name in news. They can get the message out. There's plenty of right-wing talk radio, OAN, Newsmax, even News Nation now with Chris Cuomo and the O'Reilly Wednesday nights, which is pretty damn good, by the way. But there are plenty of ways for right-wing, right-leaning topics to get out. So I don't like to get into the position of making it sound like the mainstream media is the only way in America people get their news, because it's not. It's simply not. So I would even ask on right-wing media outlets, where's the footage? Where is the footage of, if Trump says that, for the most part, whites are getting shot more than blacks and they're getting beat up and things like that, there are plenty of right-wing media outlets that are very favorable to Trump. They could easily back up what he's saying if it's true and there was footage. They're not showing it either. So I would have to ask it from that standpoint. Next, we're on media right now. This isn't mainstream media. There's nobody running a program like this shit, where you got a liberal talking to and showing love for MAGA. What we're doing here is so fucking unusual. People don't even know what the hell they watching. You got YouTube, where people are allowed to bring their own media outlets. So there are avenues for anyone, regardless of what you're going through, to get your point across. So I don't want to ever believe that mainstream media is the only way we're delivering news by today's standards. That's just not true. There's a hell of a lot of ways to get your point across. Even people in China and Russia, where they're not even allowed to tell you what the hell is going on, is getting their point out. So anyone on the right that makes it sound like, well, nobody will hear us, we can't talk, that's not true. That is not true in 2023. There's too much damn technology all over the place. As always, folks, this is indeed a lunch break live. You know what we do around this time. I do appreciate the fact you guys are rolling with me. 500 plus, tap the screen. 50,000 likes is always good shit. MAGA-friendly program. We do not ban, block, or censor anyone for their commentary. The fact that you may disagree with the host, as always, doesn't mean a damn thing here. The whole point of the program is to show that if a liberal can talk to Republicans, conservatives, and MAGA in particular, if we can do it here from a civilized standpoint, they can do it in Washington. They're just not trying. So until the next time, I'll catch you guys later. It's your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. I got to go.